Welcome to True Tomorrows, the show where we separate tomorrow's reality from science fiction. I'm Adrian Smith.
And Julia Jones.
Buckle up, because today we're
Yeah.
exploring a story that asks, what if the multiverse isn't all it's cracked up to be? Imagine a world with crimson skies, whispering trees, and bounty hunters from other dimensions.
Oh, wow.
Our story today, Lost Echoes, drops us right into a world where tech lets you jump between realities. But, as you'll see, things go very wrong.
Right. It's definitely a story for anyone who loves exploring the dark side of tech, the thrill of the unknown, and the consequences of chasing your dreams.
And if you enjoy mind-bending stories like this one, remember to rate and follow True Tomorrows. We've got new captivating tales lined up every single day.
Okay, so let's unpack this story. We've got this group, the Drifters, who are living in a pretty bleak world. They're constantly dodging corporate surveillance drones, just trying to get by.
It doesn't sound like a very fulfilling existence.
No,
It doesn't. So you can understand why they'd be so fascinated by this salvaged piece of tech they find called the dimensional compass.
Right, it's like they've stumbled onto the ultimate escape hatch. Suddenly they have access to infinite realities. A world with crimson skies, another filled with bioluminescent whales.
Wow.
It's pretty tempting stuff.
The story really emphasizes that feeling of them being explorers, pioneers venturing into uncharted territory. They even talk about conquering these new worlds.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how quickly that explorer mentality shifts. Because it doesn't take long for them to encounter some very unwelcome company, bounty hunters, who can materialize out of thin air and even shapeshift.
Yeah, these aren't your average villains. The story describes them as incredibly menacing and powerful.
And their presence completely changes the game. The Drifters go from being excited explorers to being the hunted, desperately leaping between realities to stay one step ahead.
Their jumps get more and more frantic. One minute they're in a world of sentient crystals, the next they're surrounded by glowing whales. It makes you wonder if there's any safe haven in this multiverse.
And the stakes keep getting higher. They eventually end up stranded on a completely barren world with these giant silent monoliths. Their dimensional compass dies, leaving them with no way out and no way to contact anyone.
Talk about a worst-case scenario. It's like they jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Exactly. They managed to escape the bounty hunters, but now they're facing a whole different kind of danger. The crushing weight of isolation and the terrifying vastness of the unknown.
And that ending, with Maya tracing those geometric patterns in the dust, it's such a haunting image. It makes you wonder if they were the first ones to stumble onto this desolate world.
Right. Were there others before them who met a similar fate? Or did those patterns have a different purpose entirely? The story leaves us with so many unanswered questions.
It's definitely a story that makes you think about the true cost of exploration and the potential consequences of tampering with technology we don't fully understand.
Yeah, it's interesting how Lost Echoes takes this idea of the multiverse, a concept that's often portrayed as exciting and full of possibilities, and turns it into something quite unsettling.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of unease that permeates the entire story.
Right.
It makes you question whether the multiverse is really a place we'd want to explore.
Especially with those bounty hunters lurking around. What really struck me about them was how they seemed to embody the cold, impersonal side of technology.
They're like these relentless machines, devoid of emotion, just carrying out their programming.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they represent the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement.
And it makes their pursuit of the Drifters even more terrifying.
Right.
The Drifters are just young people driven by a thirst for adventure, and they end up being hunted across the multiverse by these forces they can barely comprehend.
It's a reminder that even with the most advanced technology, we're still vulnerable.
Right.
We can still be hunted, controlled, and manipulated.
And that brings us to a question that's central to the story. Who's really in control in this multiverse? The Drifters think they're charting their own course, but it becomes clear that there are forces at play that are far beyond their understanding.
That's one of the things I found so compelling about Lost Echoes. It's not just a simple adventure story. It's a story that makes you think about the nature of power, control, and the limits of our knowledge.
And it does that by using the dimensional compass as a metaphor for any technology that promises us unlimited freedom or power. We often get so caught up in the possibilities that we fail to consider the potential consequences.
Right, and the Drifters are a perfect example of that.
Exactly.
They just wanted to escape their mundane lives, but their actions ended up having repercussions that rippled across multiple dimensions.
The story doesn't tell us exactly why the bounty hunters are after them, But it hints at the idea that there are rules to this multiverse hopping, some kind of cosmic order that the drifters have disrupted.
Which raises another interesting question. If we ever do develop technology that allows us to travel between dimensions, who gets to make the rules? Who decides what's allowed and what's not?
It's a question that goes beyond just science and technology. It delves into the realms of philosophy, ethics, and even politics. How do we govern a multiverse?
It's a mind-boggling concept,
Yeah,
but one that we might have to grapple with sooner than we think, given the pace of technological innovation.
absolutely. The story of the drifters serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us to approach these advancements with a healthy dose of skepticism and to think critically about the potential long-term consequences.
And to remember that the pursuit of freedom and exploration should always be balanced with a sense of responsibility and a respect for the unknown.
It's a delicate balance. Lost Echoes really makes you think about what it truly means to be free and whether escape is always the answer.
Especially when that escape leads you to a place as desolate and unforgiving as the world the drifters end up on. Their dimensional compass dies, leaving them stranded on this barren planet, surrounded by these enigmatic monoliths. It's a pretty bleak situation.
It's almost like a punishment for their hubris. They were so eager to escape their own reality that they ended up trapped in a place even more desolate and hopeless.
And it's not just the physical isolation that's so unsettling. The story describes this pervasive silence that hangs over the world.
It's a silence that amplifies their fear, their loneliness, their sense of being utterly lost and alone in a vast, indifferent multiverse.
It's almost as if the silence itself is a character, a malevolent force that's slowly crushing their spirits. They've escaped the bounty hunters, but now they're facing a different kind of enemy, the emptiness within themselves.
The story cleverly subverts the typical escape fantasy trope.
Right.
It's not enough to outrun external threats. The real challenge becomes confronting the void within, symbolized by that barren world and the oppressive silence that surrounds them.
And then there are the monoliths, these giant silent sentinels that loom over the landscape.
Yeah.
They add another layer of mystery and unease to the story.
They're like ancient witnesses to the drifters' plight, silent observers of countless stories of hope and despair that have played out in this desolate world.
What I find so intriguing about them is that they're never explained. We're left to wonder who built them, what purpose they served, and what secrets they might hold.
It's like the author is inviting us to fill in the blanks, to imagine our own interpretations of their significance.
And I think that's part of what makes Lost Echoes such a powerful story.
Right.
It doesn't give us all the answers. It leaves us with questions that linger long after we've finished reading it.
Questions about the nature of reality, the limits of our knowledge, and the choices we make that shape our destinies.
It's a story that stays with you, prompting you to look at the world around you a little differently and to question the assumptions we often make about technology, progress, and the pursuit of happiness.
And it makes you wonder, if you were in the drifter's shoes, facing the silence of that barren world, what would you do? How would you find meaning and hope in a place that seems devoid of both?
That's a question that's both unsettling and strangely inspiring, because it suggests that even in the darkest of circumstances, there's always a glimmer of possibility, a spark of resilience within us that can never be extinguished. We've talked a lot about the bleakness of that barren world where the drifters end up stranded, but there's one detail that I find particularly intriguing, and that's the fact that their leader, Maya, starts tracing these intricate geometric patterns in the dust.
Yeah, it's such a subtle detail, but it really adds another layer to the story. In the midst of all this despair and uncertainty, you have this character who's still trying to make sense of their situation, still searching for meaning.
It's almost as if she's trying to communicate, but not with words.
Yeah.
It's like she's reaching out to something beyond their immediate reality.
I think that's a really insightful observation. Remember, they're surrounded by these enigmatic monoliths. It's possible she sees a connection between the patterns and those structures.
Right. It's like she's trying to decipher some ancient code to unlock the secrets of this desolate world. And on a deeper level, I think it speaks to that innate human desire to find order in chaos, to impose meaning on a seemingly meaningless universe.
It's almost as if by creating these patterns, she's trying to reclaim a sense of agency, to assert some control over a situation that feels completely out of their control.
And it raises so many questions. Were these patterns a form of communication? A message to the universe? Or were they simply a way for Maya to cope with the overwhelming isolation and uncertainty of their predicament?
The story leaves it open to interpretation, which I think is one of its strengths. It doesn't provide easy answers or neat resolutions. It challenges us to grapple with the ambiguity and to draw our own conclusions.
And it's an ambiguity that reflects the larger themes of the story. The limits of our knowledge, the unintended consequences of our actions, and the constant struggle to find meaning and purpose in a universe that often feels indifferent to our existence.
Yeah, I think Lost Echoes is a story that resonates with us on a very deep level because it taps into some of our most primal fears. The fear of the unknown, the fear of isolation, and the fear of being lost and forgotten.
And yet, amidst all that fear and uncertainty, the story also offers a glimmer of hope. It suggests that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit can endure.
That even when we're stripped of everything we know and love, we still have the capacity for resilience, for creativity, for finding beauty and meaning in the most unexpected places.
Just like Maya tracing those patterns in the dust, it's a small act of defiance, a testament to the power of the human imagination to transcend even the most desperate of situations.
And it reminds us that even when it feels like we're lost and alone, there's always a spark of hope within us, a drive to connect, to create, to find our way back to something that feels like home.
So as we wrap up our exploration of Lost Echoes, I want to leave you with this thought. If you were to find yourself stranded in a desolate world, facing the unknown, what would you do? How would you find your way back to yourself, to those you love, to something that gives your life meaning?
It's a question worth pondering, and as you ponder it, remember that the journey itself is often more important than the destination. The challenges we face, the choices we make, the connections we forge along the way, these are the things that shape who we are and define our experience of this vast and mysterious universe.
Thanks for joining us on True Tomorrows. We'll be back tomorrow with another mind-bending story from the frontiers of technology and imagination. Until then, keep those minds open, those hearts curious, and those spirits adventurous.
And remember, the future is what we make it, so let's make it a good one.